This is Joshua Gillespie, and I'm doing my film analysis on Inception. Um, this movie is about a group of people who use people's minds as weapons, and the main story the main plot of this story is an agency leader wants his company to rise up to the top of the game, but he can't do that because there's another company who he can no longer compete with, and they're number one. So in order to do that, he hires these people who steals people's thoughts, and he tells them he wants them to implant an idea into this company, into this number one company's leader. And this is a really hard task. And the reason that these thieves are willing to do it is because the head of these thieves, played by Leonardo da Vinci by the name of Cobb, wants to get back to his family. He can't get back to his family because he was accused of killing his wife for implanting an idea in her brain which she thought it was the real reality. It may be hard to understand a little bit, but I'm trying to explain it the best I can. So basically this movie is about these idea stealers implanting idea into this Fortune 500 company who's number one in the world, and destroying the company essentially. So that would be the main idea of the film. So now I'm going to analyze the in particular scene that I decided to go into detail with. So in the beginning of the movie, there's a scene in which the agent and his partner are trying to steal the thoughts of a great Japanese agency leader. They pose as brain protectors, and when I say brain protectors, I mean they pose as people that are trying to protect his thoughts versus stealing his thoughts. But instead, they're really stealers. The Japanese agency leader finds out right before they steal his private info. The stealer shoots his partner, and the dream begins to collapse as he is trying to escape with the info. As the stealer is trying to escape with the info, as the dream collapses, the partner who was shot is attempting to upload the info to their machine in the real world. They realize that the plan will not work, so they desperately try to get the thief that is still in the collapsing dream to wake up. He struggles to wake, so they dunk his real body into water, in which the dream floods, and he wakes up into the real world. Then there's a twist. The world I once referred to as the real world was actually another dream world. It was a dream within a dream where they get his info. We then, as an audience, finally reach the real world in which they have to get away from the Japanese agency leader. At the end of the Japanese agency leader wakes up as if he didn't know what happened. Now I want to talk about a few specific areas that need to be touched up on. So I want to start out with the framing. In this scene, the framing appears to be shot from a distance, such as the part in the scene in which the dream is collapsing. We see large bricks and debris fall from the top of the screen, and the glasses and other things fall apart. We also see this in the part of the scene in which Leonardo DiCaprio is sitting at the long table in which he is attempting to lead the dreamer into the idea that he is in a security mechanism of his subconscious. We also see a long shot as Leonardo climbs down the side of a building, which provides beautiful scenery of the ocean and adds a sense of mystery with the brightly lit moon as Leonardo creeps in the night. There are also many medium shots as they want us as an audience to embrace the emotion on the faces of the actors. The scene begins with Leonardo face down in a close-up shot, but when he reaches the room and begins to engage in conversation, the shots begin to turn into medium shots. As the scene progresses, the shots get further and further back in order for the audience to interpret and understand what's going on a wider scale level. Next, I want to talk about the editing, the angles, and the movement on the screen. In terms of editing, the scene did not get too exclusive. In the scene, the editing consists of many flat cuts. The most commonly used points in which these cuts were made are when Leonardo was speaking to Saito, the Japanese agency leader. As the conversation switched back and forth, the camera would switch from character to character. Another example of cuts in the film is the point in which Leonardo tied a rope to a chair where a woman was seated in order to safely progress down the side of a building. All of a sudden, Leonardo loses control and begins to plummet. The scene then quickly cuts back to the room where the chair was placed in order for the audience to understand what had happened. There were also cuts in the points where the director wanted the audience to understand what was going on in a different section of the dream, such as the point in which Leonardo was attempting to escape from Saito's men. And the scene quickly cut back to the point where Saito opened up the envelope with his private thoughts only to find a decoy. There are many examples of cuts in the film, not only in the scene I have decided to analyze. There were also a lot of camera movement, such as the part in which Leonardo is running from Saito's men. The meaning of this camera movement was in order for the audience to embrace the distress that Leonardo was in. A visual motive that continuously occurs throughout the film is Leonardo's totem. Leonardo's totem. In the movie, it is said that the dream chasers each need a totem in order to recognize when they are in the real world and when they are in the dream. This has significance because without the totem, Leonardo would not have known the difference between his altered reality and the real world. Another thing in the editing of Not My Scene, but in the film, there was a dolly shot during the scene in which the dream chasers were being chased in a car. The mise-en scene of the scene is a building in which many pillars and towers are placed throughout the building. We also see many misleading passageways. The building is very dim in lighting, which made it difficult to really point out everything. The reason these things were placed where they were was because it added suspense to the chase and it added obstacles for Leonardo to face. I did not notice any extreme close-ups nor any extremely long shots in my scene. But I did notice that our eye level with the characters was prevalent in the scene in which Leonardo's partner wakes up and is trying to keep Saito from awakening. We also see a sense of vulnerability when Leonardo's partner is shot in the foot and he almost falls to his knees. This was achieved through high camera angling. I did not distinctively notice a bird's eye angle in my scene. Next, I want to talk about the sound. In terms of this scene, the diegetic sounds that the audience typically encountered was for one of the voices of the actors as they dialogued. We also heard diegetic sounds as gunshots were being fired throughout the scene. The diegetic sounds allowed us as the audience to interpret the feelings of the actors that was expressed through his voice and facial expressions. The gunshot sounds add a sense of reality to the film, as we can somewhat feel the shots being fired. The last diegetic sound that was reoccurring was the sound of the crumbling debris. This added a sense of being in a situation as walls and glass crumbled, shattering across the dream, adding tension and suspense. Some non-diegetic sounds that I encountered was, for one, the music. The music score done by Hans Zimmerman was a very well played out score. In the scene, the music is very faint and unheard. But as the scene progresses, such as the collapsing of the dream, the music creates a sense of escape kind of a feel. The music adds to the tension in which Leonardo is under extreme pressure to escape the claws of Saito's men. The music also builds up the suspense in the movie as the audience surely wants Leonardo to escape. The music also gives the audience a clue about how they should feel about the scene. The music is very suspenseful. Imagine the collapsing of a dream without the music. It will feel pretty lame and awkward. Lastly, I want to talk about the lighting a little bit. The lighting in this scene is particularly dim. I believe the director's reasoning for this was to create a sense of danger. When I say a sense of danger, I am referring to the dark as being an area that is mysterious. With mystery, people become fearful, and that can be interpreted as good or bad. In context of the film, the dim lighting was used when Leonardo was attempting to escape the claws of Saito. The dim lighting also fit into the music, in which was being played during the epic chasing. Part of the scene, on another note, the lighting is also suspenseful as it helps build up the tension in the piece of the film.